Hi, my name is Tim Healing, and I'm a project manager with over 30 years experience, and I specialize in the organization and coordination of projects in the heritage, museum, and social action fields. I work mainly on projects in the Middle East, the Gulf states, North Africa, and Central Asia. And today I'm going to show you how to use a work breakdown structure, or a WBS, to help you plan a project. So when and why will we use a work breakdown structure? Well, the WBS is basically designed to assist us in breaking a project into smaller portions, which can then be handled and controlled more efficiently. It helps you start the process of estimating the cost, the time, and you can look at the risks of a project more closely. It's easier to allocate tasks. Should you have staff you can allocate them to. Most of the projects I work on, it's generally just me though, and it helps to show you the project milestones, and it helps to show you actually the scope of the project too, which is useful if you're working with stakeholders. So I'm going to show you how to set up your own work breakdown structure, and to do this I'm going to use an example of a project I worked on and have been working on for a few years now, the photographic documentation training for Middle Eastern museum professionals. So first of all, we put that title, or the title of your project, at the top in a box like this. And then I decide I want to break it down into 4 components, which I can look at more closely how I want to work on them. So the first component is trainers. I need to identify trainers, get them on board, and these are the people that are actually going to help me do the training in the Middle East. So the next component is equipment. We're going to be doing the training with Middle Eastern museum professionals, but we need to give them equipment. We need to get that equipment and make sure they can take it back with them so they can start documenting their collections after the training. Then there's the participants. We need to identify them, invite them, and we're going to do this training in Jordan. So the reason we chose Jordan as the venue is the first reason. Well, it's actually we're working with Middle Eastern museum professionals. It's a lot cheaper to do the training regionally. If you're inviting them to the United States, it becomes more expensive. But it's also very difficult with a lot of Middle Eastern participants to get visas and approvals to do the training in the United States or in Great Britain or some other countries in Europe. So we prefer to work regionally, so we'll be looking for a venue in Jordan. And you should also notice that for the trainers, equipment, participants, and the venue boxes, I put them in a different color just to show that it's the secondary level of the work breakdown structure. So now we're gonna focus on trainers and start to put in the different aspects of the work we need to work on with the trainers. So the first one is plan the training, and you can see I put it in a different color again to show the next level. We're hoping to get a training manual together, so we need to organize that before we go out, and that's just something we plan to give to the participants so they can take away with them. I need to book their flights and visas. Even if they're working in the Middle East or we're doing the training in the Middle East, they still need visas. And of course, I need to get them a place to stay and give them a per diem. So I filled in the same process for equipment. We need to identify the equipment. We need to purchase the equipment, We should probably test the equipment before we go and do training with it, and then we need to ship it to Jordan. And again, with the participants, we need to, it's a little more complicated when you're working in the Middle East, of course. So you need to get permissions from their institutions. You need to get letters of invitation so they can get a visa. We need to book their flights and get their visas and get accommodation and per diem for them. We also need to make sure we get taxis from the airport to the venue or their hotel where they'll be working. So that's an added thing. So as I said, we're doing this training in Jordan. So the venue we need to find not just in Jordan, but it needs to have a training room that we can use. We need to get good translators. None of us speak Arabic, and it's really important to get good simultaneous translators, if possible, that can work with us. And also we need to get some materials probably in place, some stationery, some other like tools that we may need to use during the training. Makes sense to get that in Jordan, probably in place before we start. And as you can see from the all these boxes on the work breakdown structure, these ones are in blue to show the next level of the WBS. So there's one aspect of the equipment breakdown that I want to focus on, because I suspect this is going to be a little more complicated, and it's going to almost become a project in itself. So I'm going to need to focus on that area a little bit more, and that's the shipping of the equipment. So I'm going to need to break that down into two parts, and again I've used a different color, this time green, to highlight that it's the next level of the work breakdown structure. And the problem is going to be twofold. I'm going to have to ship the equipment from the US into Jordan, and afterwards I'm going to have to ship it or organize the shipping of the equipment with the participants who are going to take it home with them to their home institution so they can start documenting their collections. So I need to get it out of Jordan and into their home country, and of course this is very complicated. So when you're importing anything into a Middle Eastern country, even into somewhere like Jordan, there's a whole host of permissions, particularly if that equipment's going to end up in like Iraq or Syria or Egypt or a variety of other places. There's a whole level of government permissions you need to get in place before that happens. And this may be extremely complicated, so I may have to get some additional support in advance, and maybe even on the Jordanian side to help with that process. And it's the same thing when I ship the equipment out with the participants out of Jordan into their home countries. There's a different level of permissions I need to get in place before we can do that shipping. And I will certainly need to get some additional support from the Jordanian side from this, and perhaps even from the Iraqi side if I'm shipping it into Iraq, just to make sure none of the equipment goes missing, and make sure it gets back to where it's meant to be going. So there you have it, the work breakdown structure for this project that I worked on. I hope you can see how it can be useful to you with your projects and you can adapt it. I've done this one on the computer, but honestly most of the time I do it on paper. It's just easier, and particularly when you have a kickoff meeting with your team or with the other trainers, you're throwing ideas around, so it's much easier just to sort of like put them down initially on paper, and then if you want to later you can put it onto a computer so it's nice and neat like this. So after you've worked on and you've completed your WBS, the next step in the planning process would probably be to put together a critical path diagram, and that's when you really start to focus on the time each part of the process takes. You can start putting costs, attaching costs to each part, and if you want to allocate a certain aspect to someone else, you can put their name next to it. It also shows you like which parts of the project can run parallel to each other. And I'll be showing you how to put together a critical path diagram for this project in a future video. So now you know how to do a work breakdown structure. It's very useful in the planning process of any project, particularly the more complicated projects. My name's Tim Healing. I'm a project consultant with Tim Healing Project Management LLC. If you have any questions or you want to see another video of a different aspect of project management, let me know in the comments below, or you can reach out to me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, Tim Healing Project Management. You can contact me that way. Thank you very much.